Shining star, no matter who you are.
Oh, darling, I was blind to let you go.
For black bands, the 1970s were a crucial time, with many leaving their mark on music history. These bands encapsulated the spirit of the era, from the funky grooves of JBS to the soulful sounds of the Blackbirds. Come discover 10 black bands from the 1970s that vanished completely. In the 1970s, the Philadelphia soul group, the Stylistics, rose to fame with hits like Wow, You Make Me Feel Brand New, and Betcha by Golly. Russell Tompkins Jr., Herb Merle, Arian Love, James Smith, and James Dunn were among the group's original members in 1968. The Philadelphia soul genre was defined in part by their music, which was dominated by Tompkins' distinctive falsetto voice. Even though they were very successful, problems started to appear by the late 1970s. Their main producer, Tom Bell, who greatly influenced their sound, ceased working with them in 1974. Even though they were still performing well in the UK, this change caused their popularity in the US to decline. The initial lineup began to change over time. Famous for their silky harmonies and timeless hits like Didn't I, Blow Your Mind This Time, and La La Means I Love You, the Delphonics were a soul group from Philadelphia. Randy Kane, William and Wilbert Hart, and later Major Harris joined the band when it first started in 1965. With its opulent arrangements and poignant lyrics, their Tom Bell-produced music contributed to the development of the Philadelphia soul genre. They were very successful in the late 1960s and early 1970s, topping the charts and obtaining gold records. The group underwent changes by the middle of the 1970s, with Tom Bell moving on to other endeavors and Randy Kane departing in 1971. Members of the Delphonics eventually went solo as their popularity waned. William Hart preserved the name. With their thrilling live performances, the Ike and Tina Turner Revue had a significant influence on the 1970s. Ike Turner and his wife Tina Turner led the group when it first formed in 1960. They were well known for their upbeat performances, which were further enhanced by Ike's band, the Kings of Rhythm, and the Ikettes, who provided backing vocals. Their greatest hits were River Deep, Mountain High, Proud Mary, and Nutbush City Limits. They were successful in their careers, but they had a troubled personal and professional relationship. Tina became famous due to her amazing voice and stage presence, but Ike seriously mistreated her behind the scenes. As a result, their personal and professional lives parted ways in 1976. Following, their brothers Carlos, Lou, and Rick Wilson founded the funk group Mandril in Brooklyn, New York in 1968. Their distinctive sound in the 1970s was a result of their fusion of Latin, jazz, and funk.
Come on, everybody, come on like you really want it now.
Popular songs like Ape is High and Fence Walk demonstrated their distinct musical style and skill. The talented musicians in the band's lineup contributed to the development of their unique sound. As time went on, the group's popularity declined due to internal changes and the shifting music industry. Many of the original members had left by the middle of the 1980s to pursue other opportunities. The Wilson brothers performed and recorded with new members in order to preserve the Mandril name in spite of these departures, even though their influence had diminished. Founded in 1973 in Washington, D.C., by trumpeter Donald Byrd and his Howard University students, the Blackbirds were a jazz and funk ensemble.
I've traveled so very far, I've got to get back home.
Alan Barnes on clarinet and saxophone, Barney Perry on guitar, Joe Hall on bass guitar, Keith Kilgo on drums and vocals, and Kevin Toney on keyboards were the original members of the band. The group's smooth, funky sound and hits like Walking in Rhythm and Rock Creek Park helped them gain recognition. They attracted a wide audience in the 1970s by fusing jazz, funk, rhythm, and blues. The group struggled as disco music faded and musical preferences shifted. The original band disbanded in the early 1980s as a result of many members leaving to pursue solo careers or other endeavors. Funk music was greatly influenced by the JBS, who were formed in 1970 following the breakup of James Brown's previous band. With players like Fred Wesley on trombone and Bootsy Collins on bass, they added dynamic energy to songs like Pass the Peas and Doing It to Death. In addition to playing with Brown, they put out their popular albums and won praise for their lively rhythms and exuberant live performances. But in the late 1970s and early 1980s, as Brown's fame waned, so did theirs. In the middle of the 1980s, the JBs broke up. Nevertheless, members like Wesley and Maceo Parker carried on with their musical endeavors, working with other musicians and using their extraordinary talent and inventiveness to further impact the funk genre. Funk was influenced by JB's legacy, but what transpired in the changing? Les Belles was a groundbreaking all-female group that gained popularity in 1974 thanks to their #1 single, Lady Marmalade. The group, which consisted of Patti LaBelle, Nona Hendrix, and Sarah Dash, was first known as Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. Their audacious and creative approach revolutionized soul and funk music. Rock, funk, and soul were all combined in LaBelle's sound, and their shows were renowned for their lavish costumes and exhilarating energy. Lady Marmalade, from their album Nightbirds, which was a huge hit, solidified their place in music history. Following a tour in 1976, the group disbanded, with each member focusing on their own career. Sarah Dash became well known as a session singer. Nona Hendrix adopted avant-garde music, and Patti LaBelle became a well-known solo performer. One of the most well-known bands of the 1970s was Earth, Wind and Fire, which Morris White founded in 1969. Michael Beale, Wade Flemons, Don Whitehead, Yaakov Ben Israel, Sherry Scott, Leslie Drayton, Alexander Thomas, Chester Washington, Maurice White, and his brother Verdine White were the original members of the band. The group had popular songs like September and Shining Star, and was renowned for fusing various musical genres including jazz, rock, funk, and soul. The band underwent numerous changes over the years. Due to health issues, Maurice White stopped performing in the 1990s and died in 2016. Wade Flemons and Roland Bautista were among the other founding members who also died. Ralph Johnson, Philip Bailey, and Verdine White continued to perform with new. The Jackson 5 were a well-known pop and soul group founded in 1964 in Gary, Indiana. Michael Jackson, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon were all brothers. They were among the first African-American groups to achieve significant mainstream success under the direction of their father, Joe Jackson. They were a huge hit in the 1970s thanks to their upbeat performances and memorable songs like I Want You Back and ABC. Even though they were well-liked, the group had problems. Due to creative disagreements, they left Motown Records in 1975 and signed with Epic Records, rebranding as the Jacksons. Randy, their younger brother, took Jermaine's place at Motown. The band kept up their musical output, but by the late 1970s, Michael Jackson's solo career began too. The talented studio musicians known as MFSB, or Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, were instrumental in producing the sound of Philadelphia. Since its founding in 1971, the group has served as Philadelphia International Records house band. They collaborated with well-known musicians such as the Spinners, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, and the O'Jays. The popular TV show Soul Train featured their instrumental hit, TSOP, The Sound of Philadelphia, as its theme song, and it peaked at the top of the charts in 1974. One of the main characteristics of the disco era was the smooth, soulful sound of MFSB's music. MFSB's influence waned in the late 1970s as disco's appeal waned. The group disbanded in 1985 due to internal conflicts and shifts in the music business.